George Salem had a complicated citizenship background. His father Joseph was Persian but moved to Egypt in the 1860s. George was born there in 1882. Joseph died and George was raised by an uncle in Egypt. He went to university in the United States. He stayed in the USA after graduation, eventually becoming a US citizen in 1908 before returning to Egypt. Back then, if a naturalised citizen left the USA for a time and allowed their passport to expire, they could be presumed to have given up their US citizenship. George kept living in Egypt, and on a couple of occasions the US indicated that his citizenship had lapsed, but it was renewed when he applied for a new passport. In 1917, the uncle who had raised George and who had inherited the lands of George's father was dying. He sold the land which had belonged to Joseph's son George. The governments and legal systems in Egypt and Persia were corrupt and rudimentary, well below international standards. Egypt wanted to prevent the land sale, so they made up groundless accusations of forgery and tied George up in the courts for years. Persia tried to claim that since Joseph had been Persian, they should administer the land and take a 6% commission. It was all very dodgy. Eventually, the USA confirmed George's citizenship and stepped in on his behalf, claiming that Egypt had not dealt fairly with George and that consequently Egypt had breached various treaties with the United States. The judgment is long and complicated and rather shows how ridiculous international law can be. The arbitrators could clearly see the defects in the Egyptian justice system, but they had to pretend that it was competent. They said international law could interfere only in exorbitant cases of judicial injustice, absolute denial of justice, inexcusable delay of proceedings, obvious discrimination of foreigners against natives, palpable and malicious iniquity of a judgment. These are the cases which, one after another, have been included into the notion of denial of justice. Egyptian justice was bad, but not that bad. The American claim was therefore dismissed. Egyptian justice was hardly justice at all, but it was the best Salem could get. From this case, we learn that international law must accept the validity of the decisions of national courts, except in the very worst cases of denial of justice.